Kate, would you say that I come across as a confident person?
In real life, yeah.
In real life? On camera, not so much?
It depends on your video. I feel like you're zooming so much in. But yeah, I feel like you do. It depends on your day. It's like everyone else. Some days you're confident, some days you're not.
When I was in 8th grade, I think I was at peak confidence levels. I've been thinking about this a lot because when I went into therapy 2 or 3 years ago, I told her, like, I want to recapture that version of myself that, like, just could walk the halls of the school, could own it. I mean, it was a little bit naive and, like, you know, the arrogance of youth, the invincibility of being 13, but I was just thinking, like, man, like that version of me, that kid, he didn't care. Like, he was just doing what he wanted to do. He was using what he had at his disposal. Like, I would walk around, I was making the memory tape, which was terrible, but I was making the memory tape for my middle school, and I think I have some of that footage because I've found some of it recently. I would just leave class whenever I wanted to go, like, work on the memory tape. And I was taking photos and I was, you know, editing, whatever else, but I just remember spending so much time out of class and using that as an excuse and having no shame. How do I get that, like, no shame version of myself back? That is really the question. See, the danger with, like, perception that we often have, we see each other in the light that we are given to see. And I happen to just have a confident bearing, I guess. But I don't know if that was developed out of a sense of, like, you know, showmanship, out of a need for approval. I was always looking for some form of validation as I went, you know, and I learned how to put on a good show, but that didn't mean that in my heart I was actually all that confident in myself. I was actually pretty riddled with insecurities, which I think is true of all of us. And when we start to think that the people around us that we see that appear to be confident, that appear to have it all together, when we actually buy into that and think that they must have it all together because they look like they do, then it actually leads to kind of a form of dehumanization, which is something that I've run into in my own experience recently in the last few years. That I figure, well, why don't we just highlight the fact that no, I'm actually still very human and still have a lot to figure out. Like, how do I get this bike out of here? And at the same time, I do want to be confident. I want to be really self-confident, self-assured, have my shit together, mostly just for the happiness factor. Like, I don't want to think about myself. I think ultimately the reason I want to be confident in myself is so that I can forget about myself and just get back to living life and focusing on what's important, which is, like, other people, my jobs, projects, all the things that actually matter in life more. Family, friends, you know, forget about me.
I love this city so much. I love living here.
Whew, I'm grateful that I get to. Okay, anyways, speaking of being grateful, I've been thinking a lot about certainty and confidence. Certainty, I believe, is what I've been searching for a long time, and confidence is what I really want to develop. They're synonymous in that way that where you can say, like, oh, I'm certain something's gonna happen, or I'm confident it's gonna happen, but they obviously have different meanings. Confident in that instance being a little less certain, right? And certainty is that idea of, like, knowing for sure that something's going to work. Like in work, I'm certain that a video is going to hit, or I'm certain that people are gonna love my guide, or I'm certain that, you know, this isn't going to go away. I really enjoy being a creator, like being a content creator. I hate that. I hate the term content creator, but being professionally creative, whether that's as a writer or a filmmaker, a storyteller, whatever that is, like being self-employed in creative pursuits, an artist, as it were, is something that I've always wanted more than anything. And considering how my life has gone for so long, considering how in survival mode I was, and how uncertain life was, all the extra jobs, scrambling, trying to make something of my life. What I really craved so much, I think, was certainty, like a certainty that things were going to work out, that my projects were going to succeed, that I was going to succeed, that I was going to make something of myself, and that, you know, there'd be not only food on the table at the end of the month, but they would all actually amount to something at the end of the day. Because who knows if it's going to amount to something at the end of the day? Like, I don't. But the reality is that there's no way to know for sure if things are going to work out. There's no way to be certain, right, about anything in life, let alone success, future, health, the state of the world. And in seeking certainty, I kind of actually upped the anxiety levels. Like, I made it worse because it's kind of like the analogy of holding sand. The harder you hold on to it, the more it slips through your fingers, right? And the more that I looked to be certain about all these things, well, the more anxious I became because the more I realized I couldn't be. And in reality, at the end of the day, what I was looking for was confidence. And confidence is something that's more flexible. It's something that's more malleable. It's something that says, you know what, like, I don't know what's coming. I can't be certain about anything, but I can be confident in myself especially. I've persevered before. I've gotten through a lot of hard times. I've managed to make something multiple times. Like, I've managed to make something of my life to some degree. I've managed to build a business around my creative pursuits. The world right now feels very uncertain for a lot of reasons. Whatever comes next, I'm confident in myself to navigate it one way or another. That's much more reassuring than trying to find a certainty and saying like, oh, I've found the right plan forward. I know what to invest in, or I know where to take my business, or I know what content to make, or whatever. Instead, just being like, no, I'm just gonna take this a day at a time and trust in myself. Feels much better to get to that place. Getting back to what I was saying about like the perception of confidence being potentially dangerous, I think it's good, and like to be confident and to be perceived as confident, there's nothing wrong with that. But the danger is, for me, in recent experience, I had like this interpersonal conflict that ended up kind of infecting a bit of a community that I used to be more closely connected to. And what drove a wedge more than anything was that nobody checked in on me. Like, there was this situation that definitely deserved attention on both sides. Not really going to get into the drama of it, but what the ripple effect was, or what ended up happening, was everybody just was like, oh, well, Jay's fine. Like, Jay has friends. Jay is good. Like, we're going to take care of this person, and he's all right. But I wasn't all right. And the fact that nobody checked in on me, the fact that nobody came around and was like, hey, what's going on with you? Like, what's happening? Are you okay? Or even just coming to see, like, what my side of things was really deeply hurtful. And I did need that. I needed support. I needed people to show up, and they didn't. Anyways, the reason that I've been thinking about this, beyond, just random moments where, you wanna come up here? Not on me. No. You got dirty paws. Dirty paws. Dirty paws. The reason that I want to capture this moment, beyond just like noting, like that period was really, really difficult, but it was also a part of this reevaluation and engagement with my hopeful self-actualization, right? Like, wanting to regain my sense of confidence in a deeper, real sense is really just wanting to be cool with who I am, to accept myself, to love myself, and to be generally actually okay on my own, even if people don't check in on me. We still need community, we still need friends, and thankfully I have that. And that experience with that community pushed me closer to better friends. Like, I actually really learned who my good and close friends were and who wasn't going to show up when I needed them. And it was a hard but very, very valuable lesson. And what's really stood out to me recently, and why I kind of wanted to talk about this as much as anything, was I've recognized that like my self-talk, even in the last week, 2 weeks, has completely changed. It's been a slow, steady progress, but I don't beat myself up anymore. Not nearly as much as I used to. I do a little bit with how I let this guy down, so I'm still working on that. But when I see myself in the mirror, when I think about myself, when I talk about myself, when I look at the world outside myself, I do have a newfound sense of confidence because I see myself in a more honest and objective light, kind of probably more in the light that many of you see me, that my friends see me, is how I'm starting to see myself.
But that's why I want to capture this moment, because I feel like my inner monologue has really shifted, and I have a ways to go, but I've spent so much of my life being so hard on myself, and that being hard on myself has been driven by a lack of certainty in myself, and ultimately not recognizing that that's a lack of confidence. As that confidence grows, like everything's changing. Mentally, emotionally, it's all really good. Cooper's actually another arena of a lack of confidence for me sometimes, because I've done a very good job with Cooper. I will give myself the credit. It took me a while to get to that place where I would take credit for doing a good job raising him, and I have done a good job. But like today, as an example, he ends up annoying me a lot because of the ways that he ends up like hurting himself or leading me into places where I'm just not sure what to do with him. This whole like bandage situation, I just found a whole bunch more of it that he pulled out when I left him here while I went grocery shopping. And it's those elements of life where everything becomes not only more difficult, but then it gets complicated because like, well, now do I have to monitor him all the time to make sure he keeps this bandage on so that he heals well? And that frustration of basically just having a baby because he's a puppy. I never wanted a baby. I don't want a baby. Why did I get a baby? So I'm looking forward to him being a full-grown dog, but it kind of erodes your confidence because then I get upset, and he's at the age now too where when I'm upset, like, he knows it. He didn't used to know that, and so now I'm having to like really check myself. And then I'm thinking like strategically, like, okay, well, he needs X, Y, and Z. Like, I need to be training him, I need to be growing him. But then sometimes it's like, no, he just needs some comfort. Like, what he really wants right now is just to snuggle because he needs that, and that's also okay. But I'm not always confident that I'm making the right decisions, and I'm just trying to do the best that I can, and hopefully that's good enough. But yeah, this has been really hard. I think it's built some of my confidence, but I'm not always the most confident dog dad. I don't really like the term dog dad that much anyways, but I'm not always the most confident with this little nugget, so I just want to do a good job. So rather than being certain that I'm doing a perfect job with Cooper and that he's gonna be healthy and perfect and whatever else, I just need to be confident in myself that I have the capacity, the capability to raise him well, even if he's bored with me. I was actually just thinking about this. It's the same thing as like with dating. You want the certainty that the person that you're putting all this time and energy into is gonna pan out, and you can't. You can never be certain about that. I don't think you can be certain about that ever in a relationship, but you can be confident in yourself, and you can put confidence in that person. You can trust that person as you get to know them better. But if you're confident in yourself and you recognize, like, I'm a catch, I'm awesome. Even if this doesn't work out, it doesn't reflect badly on me, hopefully. And I'm confident that I can get back out there and, I'll meet somebody else. We'll talk about dating in France and all that here soon. Actually, Kate, who you saw earlier.
Like, you're confident like anybody else depending on the thing that you're doing. Like, if it's dating, sometimes you weren't confident before, but now it's gotten better. And it's like if you're doing videos, you're confident in your video creation. So it just depends on what you're doing.
I like that because I am not always confident in my video creation. Is going to be my next guest. She's been my assistant for almost 5 years. With some on and off, but mostly on. She's dating a French guy, amazing guy that I really, really, really like. She's going to be my next guest on Garage Monologues. So if you're not a patron already, that's coming out this Friday. And if you want to, get in on a little bit of the behind the scenes on the dating in France, that could be a motivator to jump on in and get the members only feed, because otherwise you're going to have to wait like 5 months for that episode to go public. Just saying. Anyways, I'm running out of daylight here. And every time I turn the camera on, Cooper wakes back up and snores, which is adorable. Anyways, I just wanted to check in because in the process of sharing my life over the last 6.5 years, I've been vlogging seriously like this since June of 2016. So it's almost 6.5 years at this point that I've been sharing my life, and I think it's really important to mark this because if you've been following closely, I think you've known that where I come from in my past with my family, with the way I was raised, and my relationship with my mom especially, I've been in search of validation for a really long time, and I've needed it, and I've looked for it in all the wrong places. As I've grown more confident, and it's something that I've actively tried to do, both through therapy and also just the way that I live my life, the choices I've been making, and we can get into the nitty-gritty of that if that interests you at some point. I just wanted to mark that this, to me, feels like a watershed. I mean, I've seen a lot of growth in the last 5 or 6 years, since I've started, but the fact that I'm so much kinder to myself when I'm talking to myself, thinking about myself less, I'm worried about what other people think about me so much less. And there are specific areas in my life where there's still some struggle. Honestly, it's mostly juggling Cooper and this ridiculous pseudo career that I have, which I think might actually be a career at this point. I've hit some landmarks along the way, but this one feels like a real one. And I just wanted to mark it and celebrate it with you. And for those of you that are struggling with like your own self-confidence, self-worth, the way that you see yourself, I guess I'm hoping that this is an encouragement, especially, again, if you've been following me for a while and you've gotten to know me through these videos, that it is very, very possible to get to the other side. It's something that you can reclaim. If you've never had it, it's something you can claim. And I would just encourage you to engage with that actively and also be patient, both with yourself and the process, and know that it will come in time. There's no knowing, again, there's no being certain about how or when, what will work the best, but just lean into it and trust yourself that it will work out. Have confidence in yourself. Even if you're faking it, eventually, on this front, I do believe you can make it. Thanks to my patrons, as always, and of course, thanks to my patron producer, Joseph Borges. Sometimes I don't know how to pronounce your names. I'm really sorry about that. But Joseph, thank you so much for being my patron producer of the day today, and to all my patrons for making it possible for me to take a step away from the insane, hectic, like 4 jobs plus video creation lifestyle that I used to lead that left me no time or space for personal health or well-being, and to really put a focus on that, especially in the last few years, to get to where I am today. It's because of these people you're seeing scrolling on this side of the screen right now that it was possible at all. Not to take any credit away from me for doing a lot of hard work along the way, but I'm so grateful to them for really being this amorphous blob of a support group out there that has really, really, really positively impacted my life. So thank you so much. Cooper would thank you too, but he's asleep in my lap right now, which is also sometimes a challenge because he likes to sleep right between my legs, and then I have to work really hard. I don't have to work that hard, but over the course of an hour or two, the active force you have to maintain to keep your legs together, to keep him from falling through. My legs get tired. I'm just tired all the time. Who would have thought? Having a dog is kind of tiring. Anyways, I'll see you soon.